Hello and welcome to the Federal. We are discussing a very important issue, the Kallakurichi, the death of a 12th standard girl in Kallakurichi, which led to subsequent protests and a whole lot of judicial action too. We are joined by Mr. Rahul Shyam Bhandari. Mr. Bhandari, thank you for joining us. He's the Supreme Court advocate on record for the parents in this particular case, for the parents of the deceased child. In this case, thank you, Mr. Bhandari, for joining us. We are, very keen to understand what's happening in this issue. And since you represent the parents of the deceased child, we're hoping to get a perspective from you as to where the case stands, what are the apprehensions of the parents. And we are interviewing you just after the developments in the Madras High Court, where reports have emerged which says that the High Court has ruled that a set of doctors from JIPMER in Puducherry will analyze the postmortem reports of the child. And we are also told that the parents have accepted, have told on record in the court that they will be receiving the body of the deceased child tomorrow, which is 10 days after the incident. So once again, thank you, Rahul, for joining. Thank you, Mr. Bhandari, for joining us. We want to know from you as to how the parents have approached you. First of all, this whole thing is bizarre that 10 days into the death of a child, the parents refused to take the body, to accept the body from the investigators. What really led to this? And also we want to understand what the apprehensions of the parents were, Mr. Bhandari.
Yes, to begin with, see, I was handling the case in the Supreme Court. So this, the order of the High Court was passed on 18th of July. 14th of July. So this order, we approached High Court. Our local team had approached High Court, and we had asked for CBCID investigation, and we had also asked for the new panel of the doctors for the second postmortem. Since, according to the apprehension of the parents, the first postmortem was not conducted in the manner as it should have been, because there was an allegation of rape, and this postmortem was precisely not on the lines of allegation of rape. We approached High Court. High Court had given us this order where they directed CBCID to take over the investigation, as well as the new team of doctors was contemplated. So insofar as that new team of doctor was there, the parents had a grievance that one of their independent forensic experts should also be there to rule out any kind of apprehension. And that's how the matter came up to me in Supreme Court. And on 19th of July, when 18th July, the order was passed, 19th, we went to Supreme Court. And we have made this plea that this has to be listed urgently. This was very well accepted, and the matter again came on 21st of July. On the same day, my oral plea for stay of postmortem was not entertained, and that was left to the main bench. I mean, the appropriate bench, which was which heard the matter yesterday. So obviously, we all are aware about the developments which had taken place later on. And the postmortem was conducted, and the postmortem was conducted without the presence of the parents and without the presence of the lawyer, which was the original order of the High Court. So, insofar as Supreme Court is concerned, on yesterday when the matter was taken up, we obviously brought the subsequent development which has taken place after the High Court order. Our first grievance was this only, that the postmortem has been conducted without my presence. And this liberty was given by the High Court to me. And then counsel was also supposed to be there. And why such undue haste was shown, there was absolutely, we had no clue, because the parents were very much in Chennai and this postmortem was conducted in the original place. So we raised this plea. We also told the court that why we are having an apprehension and why are we seeking the appointment of an independent expert. As I told you that the parents had suspicion, that because this is a death of their minor daughter, and this death has occurred in mysterious circumstances. So their suspicion was this may be a case of rape and murder, and they have a right to ask the court for a fair investigation. And we were very grateful to the High Court that High Court granted that. It only limitation was that forensic expert. We pleaded this point before the Supreme Court also, that this forensic expert should be appointed. Obviously, the High Court, we have complete faith in High Court, but this was not taken into the consideration. So owing to the subsequent development taking place on 19, where postmortem was not done in my presence, owing to the development that forensic expert could have been also provided to me, my independent expert, when in order to show complete transparency, Supreme Court heard us, and Supreme Court had given us liberty to go back to High Court. And this liberty is important because normally Supreme Court, we know that this liberty, until you are given this liberty, you can't agitate this point once again before the High Court because High Court has already dismissed prayer. But since the order of the High Court was on 18th of July and the subsequent development of postmortem had taken place on 19th of July, Supreme Court told us that considering the subsequent events and what grievance you have in the present petition as to appointment or as to third postmortem, you are permitted to go before the High Court and raise all these pleas. I must clarify over here that there was no dismissal as such. Even if you go through the order dated yesterday's order, not a single word as such dismissal. There's 2-page order which clearly says the liberty is given and this says disposed of. So that's how we came to High Court today. And our local team was handling the matter in the High Court. Insofar as High Court is concerned, you're absolutely right. These developments have taken place where the High Court has said that, that we have accepted. I have been told, I have been informed by my team, I'm not in Chennai, but I've been informed that the parents have accepted to take the body and tomorrow possibly there will be cremation. Now, in High Court, the developments are like this, that the second report has also come out and second report has mentioned that once again that it is possibly a case of suicide. Now, only after the intervention of our Supreme Court order, possibly High Court in a very fair manner in order to rule out that possibility also, I've been told that now this second report and first report will be referred to third independent agency in somewhere in Puducherry, in JIPMER University. So this is a development which had taken place in High Court.
Yeah, Mr. Bandar, you're right. So they have, there will be forensic experts, just like how the parents wanted. But still, there is apprehension. I know we can't go into the hypothesis of why the High Court has done this, but still, there are certain apprehensions. You are somebody who has interacted with the parents. Just to give a perspective as to, I know you in detail mentioned, but still, right from day one, the parents were not satisfied with the way the things were dealing. We at the Federal had done a detailed interview. We had spoken to some analysts, people who have been on the ground, to find out why the parents were apprehensive about this whole thing. But what have they told you? Why is it that right from the beginning, they were not convinced that this is not going in the right manner? And we did see all those riots break out, and eventually there was a second postmortem also done. And now finally the parents have said they will accept. Does that mean that they are convinced? What is your reading of the situation?
See, Prem, I would definitely not want to get into the merits of the case because the matter is sub judice before the High Court and High Court is going to examine this matter day to day. But however, since you wanted to know the apprehension of the parents, insofar as the apprehension is concerned, we are aware about the developments, how the death has taken place. Now, there are two parts. The first part is prosecution believe that it may be a case of suicide. The parents had an apprehension that their girl will not commit suicide. They had an apprehension that it may be a case of rape and murder. So the grievance of the parents was that the investigation should have been also conducted keeping this into mind. Now, why I say this? Because the first post-mortem report, just to give an instance, the first post-mortem report, you don't see the internal examination of the deceased body. Because when you have to examine the allegation of rape, you have to see you have to do the internal examination of the body. And you have to check internal genitals in order to rule out any possibility. This is one of the instances. And obviously they had their own emotional and solid reason that their daughter cannot commit suicide. And the manner she was studying, she was apparently a bright student also. All these factors combined together. There's some more factors which I feel I should not discuss at this moment, at this stage. So for all those reasons, they had this apprehension. And I think it is always fair to examine, because if there is a suspicion, if there is something, it's better to introspect on both counts and come with a report. And I'm sure this is how it is going to be done since now High Court is examining. And
but have these points, Mr. Bandari, have these points come out either during the course of your arguments or during the earlier petitions that came? Did it come out that there was no internal examination of the body, that there was no, were these things brought out, or were you the first person to bring this up?
Yes. So insofar as Supreme Court is concerned, where I was handling the case, obviously we have raised this specific pleading in our case. We have specifically stated about what went wrong with the first postmortem report. As to the first postmortem report was not, I'll tell you what are the pleadings. First postmortem report, it was not conducted by the competent doctors, because the first postmortem report was conducted by a senior resident and a trainee doctor. Now, in such kind of sensitive cases, it is a rule of the law that the head of the hospital should conduct. Number one. Number two, gyno was
This
called.
was a trainee doctor that conducted the postmortem, the trainee doctor.
That's one. And then head of the doctor, no professor was there. Now, number two, and apart from that, gyno was called, and gyno is supposed to do the internal examination. There was no report on internal examination at all. And obviously, there were so many other discrepancies with respect to blood stains, which place, what place, and all those factors. And the timing of that also doesn't matter, because apparently school had informed that on 13th of July, 6:28. This is what we have stated in our pleadings also. I'm saying strictly based on my pleadings, not beyond anything. So the 6:20 a.m., 13th July, parents were informed that she had fallen. And by the time she reached, she was brought dead in the hospital. But the postmortem says the death has taken place 36 to 48 hours before the postmortem. The body was brought post postmortem. According to that, that should have had occurred by on 12th July late night. So likewise, there were a number of apprehensions, and we raised this in our pleading before Supreme Court, as well as in my argument before the Supreme Court, oral arguments, that this is why we had an apprehension. And we very well understand that High Court has already granted a commission of the second team. Second team is yet to come with a report. And that's how we wanted to place this fact before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court heard us, and Supreme Court, since High Court was seized of the matter, Supreme Court said that it's better you go before the High Court. And taking into account the subsequent developments on 19th July, you place all these facts which shall be considered in accordance with law. That's how the matter.
But another question that arises: why did the parents think that it is a case of rape and murder?
See, as I told you, Prem, it'll be difficult for me to get into complete merits of the case at this stage. But as I gave you some instance that that's their daughter. She and because the story which has been put that it's possibly a suicide. She has left a suicide letter and all those things. They do not believe it for so many reasons, their own reasons. I know, and possibly I read somewhere that she was not a bright child and she was struggling with her studies and all those factors. They were not believing that this could happen. So I don't want to get into that as to why, but yes, insofar as legally, if I have to tell you, I can only tell you the first postmortem should have considered this factor, and that's how the examination should have been conducted. I'm sure the second I have not seen, with a caveat, I must add. I'm yet to see the second postmortem report. Possibly they would have examined this aspect and would have come to the conclusion. So this was pleading before the court, and that's how Supreme Court remanded us back to the High Court. There was no dismissal as such. It was merely disposed of with the liberty to raise all this, please. Legally, somebody may ask me that, why, how can you re-agitate those pleadings once again before the High Court? But the subsequent development, that's a reason Supreme Court was inclined to send us back to. And I have been told that High Court has heard the matter today. And that's how the High Court has passed an order. And I think this is a fair thing that now it has been referred to third independent agency for an exam. And the videograph is also going to be shown to third thing. Yes, that's how it has happened.
Yeah, so I understand why you're reiterating the fact that the Supreme Court mentioned that they were disposing of the petition and not dismissing, because it was widely misreported yesterday that the case was dismissed and that the case went against the parents, but that was not the case. It went very clearly. The Supreme Court took into consideration what you pled.
Absolutely. See, because had it been not that scenario, it could have been simply dismissed. There would not have been any liberty, number one, and it could have been dismissed as withdrawn without even observing anything. So there would not have been any scenario like this. Because Supreme Court, and if you see the order, it very well mentions the subsequent development, and that's how they say, considering subsequent development, considering what you have raised in present petition, we give you liberty. Because the parents had this grievance that first postmortem report was conducted, all right, it was not fair. Second postmortem report, I was asked to be there. So therefore, why was such undue haste shown in finishing the second post-mortem report? That's what we pleaded on the instructions of the client before the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court also had asked the state in oral hearing that why had you not waited for some more time? So that's how the matter has culminated in Supreme Court. But sadly, somewhere it has been reported as it is dismissed.
Yeah, it was widely reported that, and it's the image that was portrayed was that it was a failure, but it wasn't. Very clearly, the parents have sort of.
And I must say why, because the order has been also uploaded today morning only. The order was yet not out. So we were very sure that this is not dismissed. This was disposed of with the liberty to raise all grievances. And that's the reason we decided it's safe to wait for the order. We got the copy of the order today morning, and that's how this thing came out to be true.
Right. So thanks for clarifying that, Mr. Bandari. But what happens now? Now that because one question that comes to mind is that after the first postmortem, the second postmortem was ordered. The High Court had asked in court that why they were not satisfied because the doctors that re-examined were appointed by the High Court. So the High Court even asked the petitioners, "Don't you trust us?" Because it is a court that has appointed the doctors. What happens now? The third postmortem, it's not a third postmortem. It is an examination of the report by an external examiner. What happens now?
First, to clarify, nowhere we have raised this apprehension that we have no confidence or trust in high courts or in any courts. If you see our written pleadings, our oral pleadings, we had complete trust in courts, and still we are having complete trust in court. And it's the court only who is going to examine and ensure that investigation is like in a fair manner. That was not our concern. But the way, from the very beginning, from the very inception, the matter was handled in a bit shaky and careless manner. Therefore, these apprehensions, were not completely unfounded. The way the first postmortem was conducted, the way, that undue haste was shown in finishing second postmortem. So therefore, all this, manifests the thing that it was not completely unfounded. Now, since it has been referred for an opinion, so possibly we will wait for that opinion also as to what opinion, because videograph is also going to be shared with them. Though I again add a caveat that we are yet to see the copy of the order. This is what has been informed by the local team. This is what has transpired. So we'll see the order, and we still have full faith in High Court, and I'm sure justice will be done in this matter.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Bandari, for spending your time with us and clarifying all those points. Thanks a lot for your time. And please do subscribe to the Federal's YouTube channel. I request the viewers watching this interview also. Now, please do subscribe to the Federal's YouTube channel to be updated on the latest. Thank you for your time.